Hey, everybody. Welcome to Fridays with Steve. Thanks for joining us. It's always an adventure around this place, battling artifact poachers and doing archaeology to now apparently I'm in space. So it's kind of a funny process here at Apex. We have a lot of fun with what we do. We'll lay down plans for the week and the month, and I sort of turn our marketing and creative team loose. Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, I see sort of the product come back, and I start to prepare, and I'm always greeted with or I guess what I should say is I'm never quite sure what I'm going to be greeted with, but it's always something that makes me smile a little bit, and hopefully makes, sometimes these topics can be a little dry, right? So makes them a little bit more engaging, even if it makes me really upset with my haircut. I don't think anyone has used a bowl on my head to cut my hair, perhaps since about second grade. So, but we're here today to talk more about objectives and key results, right? There's lots of frameworks and lots of ways to sort of approach this. What I said last time kind of carries over, which is there's a lot of commonality, right? So if you talk in the language of strategies and tactics and those kinds of things, they're going to match up pretty well with this framework too. And so I think most of us will find it useful. And if you don't have a framework, or you're specifically using a solution like Viva that really embraces the OKR framework, I think this will go a long way in helping you with how you think about it. I know we were very proud of this build. Didn't get the full crawl out into infinity, like that trend-setting movie from 1977 did. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of the fundamentals and benefits, some of the do's and don'ts, some best practices. I'm going to try sprinkle in. I've had a lot of experience with this stuff, both as a sort of a consumer as well as a facilitator, both as an individual contributor, first line manager, as well as an organizational leader. And so kind of have some battle scars and some things that I know work, that I'll highlight as we go through the content today. This is really about making sure that your corporate mission, your organizational mission flows through and is made real for everyone in the organization. I'll talk a lot about this alignment throughout today's Fridays with Steve, because that's really the goal here. This isn't performance management. It's not project management. This is making sure that everyone in the organization is aligned towards, a set of goals, a set of objectives that really mirror the corporate or the organizational mission. The one that's in sort of pop culture right now is the team over at SpaceX, right? Elon, love him or hate him, he's really shown the example of how this works in a large organization, where he says, hey, if what you're doing isn't getting us a day or a foot closer to Mars, then we shouldn't be doing it. They have this very, very unifying mission. And so even though they're launching satellites or, working on, specific engineering projects and things like that, they all map to that. And I guess it's kind of topical based on the theme. They're mapped to that goal of getting to Mars. And he makes it real clear for the organization that, hey, if you're doing something that doesn't help us get to Mars, then you need to not be doing it. And that's really about having the maximal impact that you can, making sure that you're maximizing the impact of your people, of your investments, of your time. I think time is a big one, and making sure that everything you do is aligned to that, right? We have a mission, why we exist. We're going to Mars, right? We have a picture of the future, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of some exercises for thinking about that. We've broad priorities. We have that strategy layer. But then we have the objectives and the key results. So if you're more comfortable, strategies and tactics and measurements and things like that, different frameworks have sort of different taxonomies for this stuff. But the reality is saying, in an organization of 1,000 people, how do you get the 950 people on the front lines who aren't in management meetings, who aren't spending time with the board of directors, aligned to that mission? And you can't do it at that high level. You have to bring it down to the things they're working on and the results they're looking to drive. So this system, this framework, is a goal setting and strategy execution system. And if we do it well, it drives alignment, it drives agility. It may not seem like that. When you think sometimes about top down and bottom up kinds of constructions, and, if you're further removed from decision making, is it really agile? Well, if what you're doing is setting the right guardrails at each layer of the organization, then, you're giving people the framework to go do their best work and make sure that it's contributing to the success of the organization. And so sometimes agility feels a little weird when you talk about this kind of structure, but trust me, it really actually does enable agility. In a vacuum, people tend to do what they've always done or what they think is safe, not necessarily what is best for the organization. And so just some fundamental definitions, what the team wants to accomplish. That's an objective. They're clear. They're stretch goals. They're public. They're shared. Limit to 3 to 5 of these objectives to really sharpen the focus. I had some experiences in different fiscal years at Microsoft where leaders would come and say, here are our 24 priorities. Well, then they're not priorities, right? At that point, you're basically saying everything's a priority. And if everything's a priority, then nothing is. I really appreciated leaders who came in and said, listen, if we do these 3 things well, we're going to be successful. Key results and how we're going to measure those outcomes is really, really critical. 70% achievement considered successful. That's, you want obviously 1.0s versus 0.7s in Gartner speak. But if people are getting, making progress towards that goal, right, showing measurable advancement of the ball, then you're being successful, right? Time frames and timelines may not always be what we want them to be. But showing or ensuring that people are on the path is critical. And then the initiatives and projects that are going to drive those results, right? So this is where we get down into the tactics. And we've got some great examples of sort of this flow of a broad objective, increase customer retention. We're going to measure it by customer churn, customer satisfaction, and our NPS score. What initiatives are we going to have? We're going to create a customer council and meet 4 times a year, blah, 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 right? What are those tactics that are going to drive those results? And there's more to it than how you write them, right? I think there's a lot to say for the brainstorming and the creation exercise. A lot of it's in the execution, the follow-up, the commitment. I'm a big believer that, having that muscle memory and that rigor when it comes to doing things over and over again, that's half the battle, if not more. I've taken, teams and organizations and just instilled some of that, do it over, do it over, do it over, and sort of spin that flywheel to great success, right? And so OKRs are like that as well, or this framework is like that, in that there's a certain element of commitment to it. And whether you're using tools like Viva or other platforms, they can help sort of enforce that rhythm and commitment. So what are the key benefits? Making sure everyone's aligned, right? Again, if something doesn't roll up the food chain to our mission statement, hey, frontline person at Apex, consultant, support engineer, help desk technician, project manager, why are we doing it? Right? That's one of the absolute critical elements. The ability to focus, the transparency element. I got in a lot of trouble with one particular leader at Microsoft because I constantly challenged her on this transparency angle. I'm happy to go take that hill. Tell me why, right? Tell me how this supports our goals. Tell me how this is going to make us a better team, a better organization, and better serve our customers. She wasn't a big fan of that kind of transparency, and so I think this is one of the ones that really has benefits because it sort of forces it on you, right? When there's just that direct cascade from the board of directors or a CEO or an executive director, say if you're in the nonprofit world, that kind of transparency can really build commitment. It's adaptable. It's got built-in mechanisms for re-examining, pivoting, being agile. And then it scales. As a process, as a framework, it scales massively, right? My friends at Microsoft, given their investment in the Viva platform, are using this more and more every day to instrument and orchestrate their organization. They're not just for leadership, right? This is taking those leadership, mission and vision level things and getting everybody aligned up and down the organization. It's not project management. It isn't, tasks and resources. This is about outcomes and strategies and making sure everyone's aligned. It's not meant to be a measure of individual performance. It certainly can contribute to team or even individual, perceptions of success and alignment. I think some of the frameworks allow for, OKRs at a team or an organizational level, but then also sort of at an individual level. Hey, I need to work on this quarter. And so, it isn't a direct line, but it certainly can help with the assessment of the organization. It's not business as usual tasks. It's not note-taking and status meetings, right? And it's not just for high-tech companies. I think that's one of the misnomers about investing in platforms like this, really getting heavy into Viva, getting heavy into, these kinds of frameworks, is that it's not uniquely designed for high-tech companies, right? There's no reason you can't take a food service company and use it to make sure that everyone in the organization, from frontline workers to the CEO, are aligned around, hey, why are we actually here? Why are we doing this stuff? And so just some of the fundamentals, we will, do X as measured by results Y via tactics and projects Z. Right. And so writing these and creating these really should be a brainstorming exercise. It should be a draft and edit kind of exercise. You'll see that in the following slides. You don't sit down and come up with, the 3 or the 5. I took my team, my organization, through an exercise similar to this recently. And the goal was, hey, let's come up with 20. And then what do we think are the best 5, right? As much as it pains us if we think back to college or high school. I mean, the papers where you started out, where you had to write a 10-page paper, but you started out with 20, is massively easier than starting out with 5, right? And trying to get to 10. And so, the fundamentals of writing these are really important. I love this one. I've used different flavors of this many, many times. Hey, write an article in a newspaper talking about our team 2 years from now and what we've accomplished. It's kind of a fun way to get people to not think in sort of the terms of the OKR framework, but what does the headline look like? The sales and marketing organization at Apex, after receiving their Emmy Award for documentary filmmaking on nonprofits, embracing technology solutions and serving the world, went to the customer council meeting and received the highest NSAT that they've received in the last 5 years. Right? I'm riffing off the top of my head, but it's that kind of exercise that I think is really fun for the team to say, hey, what are we going to be known for? What are we going to accomplish? What awards are we going to win? And that can be super, super powerful. I do have to call out before anyone hits us with it, because I know sci-fi can be riddled with landmines, as it were. I know we're mixing metaphors. I initially thought this was The Martian. I don't think it's The Martian anymore. But we got a little Star Wars. I was teasing that, between slides, I was going to make the Star Trek door noise, as slides come and go. And so we're having a bit of fun with this. I wouldn't do this at a convention or something and get taken out back and have my lunch money stolen. When you write these, some of the ground rules, actionable, aspirational, meaningful, they should be easy to remember. They should be simple, right? They should be note card, elevator pitch kinds of things. Everybody can stay focused and stay united around these as you go through. And so, follow the formula, write, edit, right? That is really critical, because you want those as discrete steps, because they're different behaviors and they have different goals, right? That one is to ideate and generate lots of ideas, lots of perspectives on what we need to do for objectives. The other is weighing them. It's a relative process, saying, hey, what are the important ones? What are the ones that resonate with all of us? And so here's, kind of a dense slide with information. Happy to share these at the end, as we always do, with anyone who reaches out, either via LinkedIn or just reach out to me via email. But this is a great reference slide, both with kind of those instructions, how many to set, what are they really about, and then some examples, right? I will increase brand recognition as measured by increased revenue, reduced churn, and improved customer retention. So now I've got my objective and my key results, right? So separated it out. Increased brand recognition, key result, revenue to 750 million, net revenue churn by 3%, improved customer retention to 99%. And then on that 99% customer retention, that's where we start to get into the tactics. What are the projects? What are the things we need to go do to drive that result, right? Customer surveys, customer counsel, a bug bounty. So when you feed back information about something that's broken, we recognize it and fix it fast. And so that's a kind of a good reference slide when it comes to building this out. There's also some guidance here around, some questions to ask or questions to think about. What is the most important area of our marketing business, of our sales business, that we need to focus on? Why does it matter? Is it something that we can make actionable? One of the ones that I think is critical to remember is that actionable piece, right? I've facilitated a lot of sessions where we're doing some education as we do it, to say, all right, but what are you going to do about it, right? What is the action? How is it made real? And is something real if it can't be measured? So when you think about the key results, right, what are the indicators that are going to show that we're actually doing what we said we were going to be doing? Is it measurable? I have responsibility for the marketing organization here at Apex. And, marketing's always a challenge. Are my ads working? Is our brand better than it was 6 months ago? And so, there are times where these can be challenging, but there's something out there. There's something that will um, demonstrate that you're making progress. I would say be careful between key results and activities, or just measuring activities. Hold 4 events. Okay, well, that's not a key result. Like when you get to the 4th event, does that mean you are successful? Well, not if nobody attended and they were poorly rated and they didn't drive sales. And so I always encourage people to be careful between sort of, and using the marketing example, counting butts in seats versus, hey, how many leads did we get from that campaign? How many new customers did we generate? What was the event satisfaction score? Something that's meaningful about the actual usefulness of, in this case, the event versus it was well attended. Okay. The problem is well attended is really quite easy to measure. Looking out in the audience and counting heads. I won't say butts again. But it's a bit of a trap, right? It isn't an indicator of a key result. It might be how an action, drive events with 1,000 customer touches. Okay, that's a good tactic. Okay, but what's the result you're going for? And so I've got some slides in here that are actually, have the ability to be filled in, mapping the objectives to team and personal objectives that drive them. There are 2 kinds of objective. There's sort of that committed and aspirational. Committed is a goal that will be achieved, right? This has to get done. So this is the 1.0, the 100%. This uses Gartner language versus the aspirational, which is we're on a journey, right? This is the Mars thing. We're going to get to Mars, just not next week, right? This is where you're making progress. They may roll over from quarter to quarter and not have such a friendly endpoint, but they are important to keep on everybody's radar. So begin with the basic formula, what you want to do so that what happens. Drive better attendance at our conference. Okay, so that's, drive better attendance to improve the customer's networking experience. Increase brand recognition, to make Skyrockets the market leader. Improve internal employee engagement. Develop a sustainable candidate lead strategy. All good examples. Those key results, they should be quantitative, they should be aspirational, they should be specific, they should be progress-based and drive the right behaviors, right? So this, again, is that whole, counting noses versus counting results. And so I really encourage you to be a little bit critical. The data part of this oftentimes is the hardest part. There are easy ones. Oh, revenue is up, margin is up, customer satisfaction is down, frowny face. Okay, but what about the downstream things that a marketing or a sales organization is doing, right? I'll pick on sales for a minute. It's not about how many calls they make in a week, right? Maybe they have some targets around that as an activity, but the goal is finding new customers, having great conversations, creating opportunities, execute a call down campaign, making 100 calls per week to enter 2 new opportunities into CRM with a combined value of 50K, right? So we can see the difference between those. And then what are the projects? What are the tactics, if that's the language you're familiar with? What are the initiatives that support that, right? Create dynamic video content as measured by completion of writing the script, recording the audio, and rendering the video, right? What are we going to use that dynamic video for? What result are we going to measure? What objective does it support? And being able to do those. So here is a nice way to see it sort of end to end. So here's the statement. I will increase brand recognition as measured by increased revenue, reduced churn, and improved customer retention. So the example of the OKR, we talked about this one a little bit already. Brand recognition, increased revenue, reduced net revenue, churn, improved customer retention. And then in the case of customer retention, here's a specific project that we're going to go execute this quarter to make that better. So reviewing them, making sure they hold up to scrutiny. Can we really measure progress? Do we have the right data coming in? Do we have the right owners and delegates? Can we do this on our own? Do we need help from other teams? Are there things that are expected of us? I like that last one, from other organizations that don't map to what we're talking about here. And this is where you get into that alignment discussion. I think all organizations can probably rationalize their alignment between teams better than we're doing right now, right? I'm doing this thing because I think it supports somebody else, realizing it doesn't really help them achieve their objectives. And so getting all the teams rationalized is absolutely critical. I've got some more examples here. I'm going to kind of flip through these so we can get to our closeout. I'd love to share this with you afterwards because I learned via examples, right? I learned via a bit of cut and paste, right? Seeing how objectives and key results and the projects are built in different organizations, in different parts of organizations, can be really, really useful. And honestly, a lot of them are probably going to come pretty close to directly translating into other organizations, right? So here's some examples of how, the product goals can drive alignment between, say, a platform and an infrastructure team. I will call out the fact that we talk about this not just being for tech, but then we use all kinds of examples from tech, kind of, unfortunately, kind of artificially reinforcing that. And so you can see, employee retention. Here are the results we're looking for. Here are the projects we're going to do that support that. In this Viva journey, it's not May anymore, so I can't say Viva la May, but in this Viva journey, you can see how these things are all interrelated, right? The career development, the dealing with people, bringing all of that together can support an objective like the one we're looking at right now. We talked about growth and scale early on in our conversation today, and it's really designed to do that. We look to do kind of this complete circle on a quarterly basis. I think that's about the right period when it comes to people being able to focus, to execute, to evaluate, to reset, and then do it over again. There's all kinds of examples in life and society where, those long time horizon things are they're really, really hard to do, right? Whether it's losing weight or stopping smoking, or there's all kinds of easy examples of like, yeah, it's really bad and you should do it, but the time horizon is either unknown or so long in the future that it's hard to create action right now, right? Everyone has a story of, someone in their family that was, a smoker, overweight or something like that. They have a heart attack, and then all of a sudden they're a marathon runner who bugs you about vegetables, right? Well, because it was made real, it was made tangible. I think a quarter is about the right cadence when it comes to that. At the leadership level, mission and vision, yearly, maybe less than yearly, right? Maybe every 2 years, every 5 years. Microsoft in its almost 40-year history has had maybe 2 or 3, mission statements. And that's okay, right? Those can last over time. But every year, every quarter, examining those and having a cadence for it is really, really critical. So a little bit of talk about, integrating it into the platform. So we've talked a lot about Viva goals and using Viva in your organization. I think that is a critical way to make this real. I think a lot of organizations have good ideas about this stuff. The execution gets a little gnarly, right? Rolling up PowerPoints and making presentations, as a company I used to work for did historically, or third-party tools. If you're a subscriber to something like EOS and you use 90.io, they're very similar approaches to this. Now we've got Viva that's sort of built into the way we work. And so, I think a lot of companies, a lot of organizations make the mistake of sort of jumping into the deep end of the pool, right? There are stages to this. There are stages to sort of the quote unquote rollout when it comes to that. If you try and eat the elephant in just a couple of bites, it's not going to go well. So start your journey, do some piloting and validation. How do you get that adoption? How do you get that commitment from everyone in the organization, rolling it out and making it part of your DNA? And then, centering around it, right? That cultural buy-in. Hey, this is the way we work. This is the way we think about the business. If everybody's on board, but there's one organization that, does it different, how do we get them on board? How do we get the organization top to bottom completely centered on this stuff? The other thing I would say is that there are different roles when it comes to implementing a good OKR framework in your organization, right? Just like good project management, if you're an MSF practitioner, you need different roles. There's got to be that executive sponsorship, that executive buy-in. You've got to have a champion that really leads the cause. Maybe this is the facilitator as well, right? That knows the framework and can really land it with folks. Team managers and HR need to be built to be bought in, and making sure that it's getting that kind of wide adoption. And then, in a lot of cases, this manifests itself in platforms and solutions, in the way we work, and having ITs, having them bought in is super critical. I'm only going to talk about a couple of these. I think OKR check-ins gets a bad rap. This is another status meeting. This is another hour. No, it's a couple minutes, right? The whole idea is that it's integrated into the way you work. OKRs actually, to me, reduce the amount on your plate. I've had the managers in my organization take me up on this. Hey, if it doesn't align to our objectives, why are you doing it, right? And so oftentimes I'll actually see it, focus people in on the things that are actually really, really critical. Some of the differentiation between, KPIs, KPI is just a measurement, of a metric that facilitates delivery, right? Website uptime is a great example. The key result is something very different, right? The key result is about traffic and conversion and things like that. You'll know if your OKRs are any good based on how they are picked up by the organization, how they drive the right behavior and outcomes, that they're measurable. I don't say that you start completely working backwards, but having an eye towards measurement and results from the beginning can actually be pretty smart. The reason being, you don't want to go down a cul-de-sac of life where you end up with hey, this would be really cool, but we have no way to measure it kind of objective. So, we embrace this stuff. We're right now transitioning from one framework to the OKR framework as we adopt the Viva platform end to end, running our own organization, right? And that's why we love helping customers. We are very excited to partner with you in this journey. We've actually got, between me and a few others on the team and in leadership, we've got experience on the soft side as well, right? The facilitating, the setting goals, the thinking about key results, the brainstorming sessions. And so we've got both that platform and that solution perspective, as well as a bit of the soft skills. And so, we'd really love to partner with you in this space. We spent a lot of time in May talking about Viva. This is a little bit about sort of the soft side of that, and it's another place we can help. So reach out. If you're a current customer, reach out to your account executive. If you're a new customer or just want to chat, reach out to sales, reach out to me directly. Happy to share the content, have a conversation about your journey in this space, and frankly, how we can partner and how we can help. So we went a little bit long today. I hope that's okay. Please reach out if you have some questions about OKR frameworks and objective and key results setting and some of the process flow. We're on the journey with you. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Fridays with Steve.